Well, hello there. Good morning and welcome to my little arty corner of the internet. It's the 5th of November, which here in the UK is called Bonfire Night, but it's also known as Guy Fawkes Night, and it involves fireworks and things. They've been going off for the last couple of weeks, in fairness. So, yeah, and it creates quite a lot of mist in the air. Excuse me, Mo. But, oh, I think there's frost overnight. I can see some frost on the roof opposite me. Oh, interesting. Anyway, sort of like it's north facing, so it'll take a while to go. And there's not a lot of sun, and it's about 8:10 in the morning, and I've been awake for a couple of hours. It took me a while to get moving. I've got my tea, my porridge oats are soaking to finish cooking, as it were, slowly, and I've been doing some art. Once I finally managed to open my eyes properly, kind of. Tell you what, age doesn't come by itself. It's me thinking out loud. I'm trying to think, when was it that I no longer had springs in my knees and feet? My eyes take ages to open and work in the mornings. Goodness sakes. Anyway, I was working on this area over here yesterday, and in the meantime I finished adding colour and I've done some embellishments. Well, the camera's not picking up at the moment, but if I move this, hopefully you will see, particularly down here, I've added some gold dots to this, and I've done these not with a jelly roll. Do you know what? It's how the camera picks it up is really different to how my eyes do, because my eyes are obviously in a different place, so it'll take me a little while to perhaps get any kind of reflection from lights and so on. But the gold bits are really, really shiny, and they're really metallic. It's just not picking it up. And for those, I used a Sakura pen touch. These are finally arrived yesterday. I've been waiting about a week for them to come, and they're these, and they are permanent. They are solvent based. I'll put it the right way up. And they're incredibly shiny, and what's nice is they don't bleed through my sketchbook paper, so that made me very happy. I did test it out very gingerly in one little corner up here, yeah, and yeah, I don't think I'd use them for colouring in large areas because I think that would look not quite right, but for adding embellishments, dots, highlights and so on, interest that will catch the light from different viewing angles is quite nice. I've also added lots of the Sakura Souffle over here, dots for highlights, though some aren't showing up very well on the camera, but you know, it's the nature of the camera. Now, I don't know what to do with these struts. I'm going to call them struts because I could colour them in with pastel. I could add pattern to them, which is a reason I have dug out some fine liners. I think. Well, I'm going to try this on the edge of the page. Oh, that's a bit violently bright green. I want something a bit more subtle, I think. That's perhaps a bit too subtle, but there's nothing in between them. These are chameleon fine liners. I have the chameleon colour tones pens and the colour tops that go with them, and I do like them as markers. I sometimes find the colours a bit on the grey side or muted grungy side. It's just the nature of them, but they're lovely because they and you can do the same with these fine liners, is you can use the marker pens. You can use the upper section, which is full of blending solution or colourless blender, and put it on top of the nib and let the colourless blender flow down into the coloured nib, and as you use it then you go from colourless to full colour, so you get a natural gradient. With the colour tops, that allows you to charge the top of the nib with a different colour, so you can go from one colour to another, and you can even stack colours and colourless blenders so you can get a whole range. They can be a bit fuddly and fussily. Yeah, yeah, we're having problems here today. Fiddly and fussy to use, and getting the timing right. How long you leave them to charge for can be a problem, and the size of the area you want to cover. And as I tend to draw on quite a small scale, it is literally just a touch with the colour, and I've got enough colour to flood the area, kind of thing. So I tend to do, it's fussy. But these pens will actually, you can do the same, but I'm just going to use them as they are today. Just as they are. Now let me have a look at this one. Well, that's better. That's an olive green one. Oh, I should have used that one. The interesting thing is these patterns here are, yeah, I'll leave them as they are. And I just want to see what will happen if I fill these areas with pattern. Now my favourite is lots of spirals, because I like spirals. But I could do something different on each one. Let me have a look. I don't want to use this kind of shape. So holly ball wouldn't really go there, because it would end up, I'd lose these. So I want to use something that's distinctly different, and I think that's where spirals with a difference. I'm going to turn them into little flowers, because why not? And the colour of the pen I'm using is quite subtle, so that these won't overpower everything else. It'll just add that little hint of an interest. I've already shaded here with a black chalk pastel pencil and a paper stump tortillon to blend that colour out. These will work over the top of that, and it shouldn't affect the nib at all too much. I just want to see how that will look here. So that actually darkens that up quite nicely, doesn't it? Actually works nicely. I did dig out some pinky purples, and again I'm just going to try the colours up here. Actually that's nice, because I've got these here, and I am going to pick up a piece of tissue, because a lot of these have got chalk on them, and the last thing I want to do is smudge things with my hand as I move. Now, this is an unusual thing for me to do. I wouldn't ordinarily use colours in this kind of way. The coloured pens I much prefer to use just all black. But as this is a sketchbook, as this is my explorations, it gives me sort of almost like permission to do things that I wouldn't ordinarily do, perhaps. It's to try things out and see what happens. I'm just going to clean that off there. Fair play, these pens are well juicy. You needn't to worry, they're fine. I just want to see what happened if I add like a lacy edge to it. So this is kind of a crescent moon, I suppose, without the moon bits being filled in. Well, it's just petals, which is actually quite nice because it echoes the petals in this one, and you know, that kind of idea. And what I'm going to do as well is, I think, let me have a look at this. Is this a big enough difference? Yeah. So I'm going to do a tip-to-tip blending just to show you, because I can. I literally have just put the other colour, a paler colour, on the top of this, just for a few seconds, and I'm going to draw with this, but I'm going to go from one spot out on both sides, and hopefully the original purpley colour will appear before I get to the end. So that's something I haven't really played with much. Let me just get that into view for you, because if I'm off the screen again, no, it's still all this lovely pink. As I said, it doesn't take long for the colours to actually blend or to give a really long-lasting gradient. So I'll do another go around here. Still haven't got to that original colour. Oh, it's beginning to appear now. So that's quite fun. And of course it doesn't matter what colour I use. One little bit. I'll add some olive. Oh, the olive's not showing up too well. I didn't leave it on there for too long. I'll do that one again in a moment. Don't know why, just didn't leave it long enough. But you put the cap of one colour onto the nib of another colour, and the cap of these pens contains, well, you know, a blending chamber or charging chamber of colour, of the colour from the other pen. So I'll try again with this olive one. You do have to hold them upright, and you do have to make sure you click the lids on, which is something I don't think I did last time. So let's see, how is this going to work? Hopefully it will. No, still hasn't really. Gutting. We try again. May just be that needs that extra bit of time. I don't know. Just try again. Oh, there we go. It just needed that extra time. You can do this with other fine liners. You can touch tip to tip and transfer colour, and it doesn't harm them. You could do them with alcohol markers. It's a classic technique for like Copic blending, is, you know, taking the colour from the tip of one pen and adding it to another and creating a gradient fill that way. But the chameleons make it a lot easier and a lot less fuddly and fissy. Yeah, fiddly and fussy to do. And that was only a shortish time of charging the colour again. I bought these when they first came out, or when they were on Kickstarter actually. Put my first order in with the plans of using them in bullet journals, because I was exploring bullet journals particularly as part of Dangle a Day, the book project I did. And they didn't arrive in time for the Dangle a Day, I don't think. But found that bullet journaling and journaling in that kind of ornate way tends to be a very, it can be a time suck if I want to spend time creating very pretty fancy arty pages and calendars and so on, and it takes me away from my other pursuits. And I am not a great, you know, in the end I had to make a choice whether I do this or whether I focus on other things. And to be honest with you, I'd much prefer to spend the time doing things like this now. Well, I have done all the way along. I wouldn't say I'm constantly creating art, but I'm consistently creating art just about every single day, unless I'm unwell or something else comes along that I do in a day. So in the times before COVID, when there were plenty of cake runs with my friend Liz, there would be days where I wouldn't get much in the way of art done, because we'd be out exploring the world and drinking, in my case tea, in her case coffee, and finding nice places to eat. And we'd say cake, but it was often ice cream or no cake. And they're just lovely days. And I am going to use this until I'm back to the original colour, because I am not going to put this away before going back to the original colour. God blimey, I didn't expect that one to flood out quite as much as it did. But dear goodness. Sorry, it's a bit boring, I guess. And of course you can't see it all. And I know why you can't see it all, because I zoomed in by accident. Did I? No. There we go, that's a bit better. Pressed the wrong button earlier. Ah, the colour's beginning to change now, I can see that. It's beginning to fade, so... because this olive green is a much stronger colour than that lovely pinky purpley colour. It does look like flowers and moss, I suppose. I did not intend to do this much. I can guarantee you. I'm going to do a couple of rows round. It's okay. This is what a sketchbook is for. Got to try things out, and you. This is going on forever. I just had a quick look just to check that I actually am not drawing with the olive pen by mistake. I'm not. Oh, that went a bit weird. That's what happens when you rush things. Okay, this is getting beyond now. It's getting beyond ridiculous, so I'm just going to take this side and let's see how far this will go before it returns to the purple. A long way by the looks on it. Seems a shame. Oh, I think the colour's beginning to change back. It is, slowly, gradually. There we go. This I'd have been there forever if I was going to wait until I went back to this colour, and I think I'm back to the original there. So there we are. Yeah, best laid plans of Mice and Angela. But actually, no, move it down a bit. How's that? That's a bit better, isn't it? That actually worked okay, didn't it? I think so. It's interesting. On the screen, as I'm looking, because I'm looking at the screen, it looks like there's a much bigger difference and a sudden change from one cut. Well, there is a sudden change from this pinky purple to the green. I perhaps should have blended it the other way and put some of the pinky purple on into the green. But I haven't worked with these very often. They've been lurking here for a couple of years, really. And every now and again I pull them out to do things like this. Okay, so if I'm going to do something like that there, I'm going to add something like that up here as well. So let's just add some spirals here. Just to add a little hint of interest. As I'm doing this, I'm going quiet because my mind is thinking about, oh, let me try this next. And not in words, but sort of like I just had a flash of an image of something to try. And which I will do in a moment. I'll just finish this lot up. This is a very strange video today for you, but it just shows the process that it's gone through. And I think that having a sketchbook, or having a system of some way of working on paper and storing it as a kind of sketchbook, actually gives you that freedom, as it were, to explore and to try things without any pressure to complete a drawing or a piece of work. And this is really, it's just really interesting and quite bizarre in its own way. It's turning into a very interesting kind of page. Let me have a look here. Have I got an 03 here? So let me just draw. I'm going to go back to my original bean shape, I think. Just a plain bean, no inner spiral. And I am just going to add auras with quite a bit of space between them, like so. And it looks like that's going to be thicker there. So I'm going to make this one here a bit thicker. I do tend to alternate, do this where I mirror where I put the lines, reflect where I put them. So this one here was towards the top and right, so here it's towards the bottom and the left. She says pointing at the left when she said bottom. But I find that adds sort of like these kinds of channels and, sort of raised areas and lowered areas, which are brilliant for things. Okie dokes. Where's my lovely, I do love this olive colour. I just thought it would be quite nice. Because again, this isn't something I'd ordinarily do. To add an area with, I'll fill this main area with pattern rather than colour and shadow. I will add some shadow. One thing that goes through my head is I know these are water reactive, but I can't remember whether you lose all of the pattern or just a bit of it. So let's have a look. Water brush at the ready. And because I've got so much of this up here, I can afford to have a look at what happens if I do use some water. Just very gently brushing, and it spreads the colour a little bit. But the pattern is kind of left behind, isn't it? Kind of. Perhaps. Blot it up and it becomes quite ghostly. That would actually be quite nice for these areas that have become rather overwhelming in the volume of them, I think. So I am just swiping them with water just to turn them into even more ghostly versions of themselves, I think. Or whether I'm going to be quick enough now to pick this water up. I don't know. We can try. That's interesting. That's weathered it. Oh, that has yeah. That's almost eroded in places. It's quite nice, actually. There's areas where I've lifted more of the colour than in others. Actually reminds me of knitting in a way. What have you. Well, that's interesting. Quite like that. So going to do this in quite a controlled manner on this one and lift the middle bit at the top, instantly creating some kinds of highlights. That's interesting. Who'd have thought? So we're going to this bit. Okay, where do I stop today's video? You see me do crazy things, but I think it's quite a question of trying things out and seeing what happens and not being afraid to do it. And as I've said, and I'll keep saying, is the sketchbook gives you that almost permission, because it is a place for you to try things out. It's not a place meant for finished perfect work. No, that one is perhaps a bit too much, but it's okay, because I can always go back once, and the same up there with it when it's drier, and just add perhaps a few hints of these in again. So I can just see enough of them to be able to add some areas of the spirals. Just to return them in as if it's broken. Light. Too much water on these ones, just about the right amount there. Again, it's learning how the media works, and if you change your paper, how to work out exactly how things work there. Okie doke, so this is quite a nice colour there. Let me go for a pink, nice violet. I have got a pinky one here. A pink. It's a bit too pale to show up on here, so I'll go with the violets rather than the blue violets. And let's just rather like something that contrasts here. This is all very curvy. I think it'd be nice to have a contrasting pattern. Something that isn't quite so curvy-wurvy. So some zigzags can go in. This is very subtle because this colour is quite pale. Do a zigzag kind of pattern. It is a very narrow channel, sort of, but I'm quite happy to work within that space. So it gives a very subtle amount of colour there and pattern. And then the outer one, I do want to do something with this green, but I don't know what. Might add some bands like this. Do I do it all the way round? I don't think so. I get irritated by having to colour things in quite so much, especially with fine liners. Turn these into a pattern. There. Pop them here too. Do them in groups of 3 because that makes me quite happy. I like odd numbers together. They actually please our mind and eye because it's restful. So if we've got an even number, our brains try to make patterns out of them, whereas if you've got an odd one, it doesn't quite so. Because there is always I think it's because there's always a central motif or line or flower or whatever, and it's just your brain just doesn't have to work quite so much. And then I think I'll put some circles between them. There we go. So that's something entirely different again, and not something I would normally do. But you know what? I quite like that. So I think it needs just some shadow and highlight. And I'm looking over here at my pens and so on. Oh, everything's so mucky again. It's all right. Just a couple of seconds with the sandpaper and this will all be clean. Seriously, it is. Looks clean enough. So I've got a grey here. It is a chalk pastel rather than graphite, because it will remain dull. Of course, I could have used something like a graphy tint to add some shadow here before I drew on the top of it. Very subtly in this one as well. Paying attention to where I think the darkest areas might be. Here I am stroking them along the shape of the space. I don't want them to go and cover all of the colour in. This one I will go all around the outside, and I'm just going to use tiny little circles just to blend that grey in and add a darker area. And that works out okay. And finally, I have some souffle, my souffle pen here. Just need to get working at the top there. I'm going to put some white dots in there where these highlights are, so I didn't need to leave that space really if I thought ahead. The white dots here as well. There. And I am going to add a little bit of white to join those areas up in between, and then I am going to just add some white inside some of the spiral areas. My voice is going quiet, I'm so sorry, but that should dry quite nicely. Should. So there we go. This is today's page, or the page as it is today, with plenty of things tried out, very confusingly, and you know, very confusing for me as well, but some interesting ideas there. And I may need to make some notes to myself, so I may use this area here to do some tiny writing, perhaps around the edge. That'd be nice going forward, is to leave a wider border so I can write notes around it, just to remind myself of what I've done, because I quite like this idea of washing the colours out and leaving that lighter space. That works nicely. And more so because the distress ink underneath is reactive to water, so you move that away to reveal some of the colour of the paper underneath as well. So I don't know what you think of this so far. I think I'm getting close to the end of this one. I'll see what tomorrow brings. And if I've got time today, I may do some work on it in between. Well, tomorrow's Sketchbook Saturday, where I look back at my week's work, which is mainly this. And I got some templates for dogs, the colouring template, and some bits and bobs of other work here and there, but not much this week. It's not like Inktober where it's been full on. So I'll see what happens, but this is coming along nicely, I think, is the best way I can describe it. And yeah, I'm feeling quite happy about it. So thank you so much for joining me Thank you for everybody who subscribed, to those who've liked my videos and those who return, and to those of you who leave such lovely comments for me. I hope you found this useful. I hope you found it inspiring. I hope it's given you ideas of things you too could try. I've used chameleon pens here, but as I've said, you can use any kind of fine liners at all. Any fine liners would work, with, as long as they're water soluble, would work. Stabilo, Staedtler, Arteza, no doubt, and all the other brands that there are. So you don't have to go rushing out to buy them. I just bought them years ago because I could, to try out, and they've just remained here, not used very much. So this is a way for me to make use of things and see what I can do with them. So thank you once again. Enjoy the rest of your day, and please, please, please find time to be creative. And until I meet you again, take care. Bye-bye for now.